A clip went viral claiming that Yella Beezy sat in a Dallas courtroom and laughed while Mo3's mother broke down in tears. It generated hundreds of thousands of reactions and became the story everyone was sharing. But when you actually check that claim against the court record, something very different shows up. We're going to walk through the full story here. The rise of both artists, the feud that turned deadly, the case the prosecution is building, and exactly what did and didn't happen in that courtroom, because the truth matters more than the clip. Melvin Noble Jr., known as Mo3, was born in 1992 and grew up on the north side of Dallas, a city whose rap scene wasn't getting much national attention at the time. He described himself in interviews as a gang member turned rapper, someone using music as a way out of a life with a fairly predictable ending. His 2014 debut mixtape set the tone. He wasn't performing a version of the streets for people who'd never seen them. He was rapping from inside it. He built his following the old way, project by project, eventually connecting with Boozy Badazz, one of his idols. His 2018 track Everybody broke through with melodic, honest storytelling that crossed over commercially. By February 2020, his joint album with Boozy had landed on the Billboard 200, and he was building toward what looked like a real mainstream breakthrough. He was 28 with 3 kids when everything changed. Maris Conway, known as Yella Beezy, was born in 1991 and grew up in Oak Cliff, a similarly unforgiving part of Dallas. He spent years grinding in the underground before his 2017 single, That's On Me, went genuinely viral, climbing to number 56 on the Billboard Hot 100 and turning him into one of the genre's most exciting new voices. The remix pulled in major names. His 2018 album cracked the top half of the Billboard 200, and within a few years, he'd opened for Beyoncé and Jay-Z, collaborated across the industry, and become one of hip-hop's most commercially viable acts out of the South. 2 Dallas artists rising in the same city at the same time, and according to prosecutors, that proximity is exactly where the trouble started. The public timeline of tension between them traces back to around 2017. Mo3 was vocal in interviews and on social media about feeling blocked from certain stages, including an incident where he says he was arrested on an outstanding warrant at a 2019 concert headlined by Beezy, Future, and Juice WRLD, something he believed wasn't a coincidence. Beezy publicly denied any involvement. At different points, both men also publicly denied having active beef at all, even as tension was clearly documented elsewhere. That contradiction created a fog that didn't clear until Mo3 was already dead. Long before any arrest, people in Dallas hip-hop circles were reportedly already saying there was a price on Mo3's head, talk that only got louder after his death. On November 11, 2020, Mo3 was driving north on I-35E near the Dallas Zoo, reportedly heading to a film shoot when a black Camaro pulled alongside his car. A masked gunman got out. Mo3 ran southbound on a packed freeway in broad daylight. He wasn't fast enough. He was shot multiple times, including once in the back of the head, and later pronounced dead at the hospital. He was 28. Surveillance footage confirmed this wasn't random. Someone knew where he'd be, had a vehicle positioned, and had a shooter ready. Kewan Dantrell White was indicted for the murder in early 2021, with a second man, Devin Maurice Brown, charged shortly after. White later pleaded guilty to federal gun charges tied to the shooting and is currently serving over 8 years in federal prison while still facing state charges. For years, though, the person prosecutors believed had allegedly turned a feud into a paid hit remained uncharged. That changed in March 2025 when a Dallas County grand jury indicted Conway on capital murder for remuneration, meaning prosecutors alleged the killing happened as the result of payment. He was arrested, held on a $2 million bond later reduced to $750,000, and has been under house arrest since, pleading not guilty throughout. Here's what prosecutors say they're bringing to trial. On the financial side, investigators allege Conway withdrew $40,000 in cash within days of the killing and subpoenaed bank records to build a paper trail. On the music side, prosecutors want 4 of Conway's songs admitted as evidence, arguing the lyrics reference paying for violence and putting money on someone's head. Detective Eric Barnes testified that Kewan White, the alleged shooter, had appeared on stage with Conway shortly before the murder. Evidence, prosecutors argue, that the 2 men were closely connected. 2 of the songs in question were reportedly sent by Conway to a co-defendant by text message on the actual day of the murder, which prosecutors frame as a potential digital footprint tying him to the crime in real time. Beyond that, the state plans to introduce Conway's alleged gang ties, prior criminal history, and a 2024 civil verdict finding him liable for assaulting Mo3's manager outside a Dallas nightclub. Conway's defense team isn't sitting still. Attorneys Toby Shook, John Guscio III, and Michael Mahler have filed an aggressive series of pre-trial motions, with the biggest fights centered on those song lyrics. The defense brought in Dr. Eric Nielsen, a University of Richmond professor who studies how rap lyrics get used in criminal cases, who testified that jurors without hip-hop literacy risk mistaking artistic performance for confession, comparing rappers to professional wrestlers, both of whom build exaggerated personas for entertainment. He cited research showing the exact same lyrics get read as far more literal and threatening when labeled as rap versus another genre like country. The defense has also pushed back hard on the sheer volume of evidence, more than 16 terabytes of discovery material, and is demanding full disclosure of any deals offered to cooperating witnesses. Conway maintains he had no involvement in Mo3's death, and his legal team argues the state is leaning on lyrics and circumstantial financial evidence rather than proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, back to that viral claim. Mo3's mother, Nicole Williams, posted "Justice for my baby" on Facebook the day Beezy was arrested back in March 2025, and she's remained a visible presence throughout these proceedings. For good reason. She buried her son, waited 5 years for an arrest, and has had to sit through a legal process that requires reliving the worst day of her life over and over. That's real. And it's exactly the kind of pain that made the viral claim so believable to people online. But here's what the actual record shows. Yella Beezy was not present at the January 16, 2026 pre-trial hearing that this clip is tied to. His mother had died just days earlier, and his legal team confirmed her passing to the court. He was home, grieving, posting tributes to her on Instagram, writing that she was his best friend and his world, and that he wouldn't wish the pain of losing her on his worst enemy. That's not the behavior of a man laughing in a courtroom he wasn't even in. The claim appears to have spread in the space between people's legitimate anger at what Beezy is accused of doing and the absence of any actual verification. The internet filled that gap with what people were primed to believe. That distinction matters, because a courtroom isn't a comment section. It requires proof, not emotion, and the case itself carries plenty of real weight without needing an invented moment attached to it. Going into an August 24, 2026 trial date, the stakes are enormous. Capital murder with remuneration in Texas triggers a penalty phase where prosecutors can pursue either life without parole or the death penalty. The prosecution's case has real substance: the cash withdrawal, the text messages, the alleged closeness between Conway and the shooter. But real weight isn't the same as certainty. If the judge rules the song lyrics inadmissible, prosecutors lose a major piece of how they want to characterize Conway to a jury, leaving the case leaning more heavily on financial records and cooperating witnesses. And cooperating witnesses are often where cases get picked apart under cross-examination. The defense doesn't need to prove innocence. They just need to create reasonable doubt in 12 people's minds. And given the complexity of this evidence, that's a real possibility, not a long shot. Dallas hip-hop has never fully moved past what happened on that freeway in 2020. Mo3 was proof that the north side of the city could produce something the whole country would listen to. And his catalog has only grown since his death, with a posthumous album and continued gold and platinum certifications. His children are growing up without him, and Nicole Williams has had to watch every twist of this case unfold publicly while carrying a grief most people will never fully understand. Beezy, meanwhile, has been under house arrest for over a year, allowed out only a few hours a week to record, still pulling hundreds of thousands of monthly Spotify listeners, even as his freedom remains entirely uncertain. At the end of the day, 12 jurors in Dallas County are going to decide whether the state has proven, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Maris Conway paid for the killing of Melvin Noble. Not what went viral. Not what the streets believed for years. Whether the evidence actually meets the legal standard, that's the only question that matters once this reaches trial. And whatever you believe about his guilt or innocence, Nicole Williams deserved better than to have her son's case turned into a viral moment built on something that didn't happen. She deserved the focus to stay on her son, on who he was, and on the case that's actually heading to trial this August. What do you think happens when this reaches the jury? Drop it in the comments and stay locked in for more as this case develops.